Hello, this is the Harvard Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. Feedback is immensely important, and feel free to reach out. And before I get into the heart of everything, I'd like to give thanks again to the support of the sponsor, Molly Biz. Great cookie company and a great story behind it. And I can't stress enough how great the initiative is, the American spirit of we're having that idea that where there's a will, there's a way. And you know what? Halloween's coming right up. It's right around the corner. It's coming right up. And these cookies will make you feel spellbound when you give it a try. Just give it a shot. Give it a shot and check it out. All right, so I will have everything linked for you. And don't forget to use the promo code The Harboring at checkout. Again, Molly Biz. Good cookies. All right, so some of the audio platforms that I'm on a Speaker, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, just to name a few. And also Deezer. All right, so speaking of spellbound, this episode is apropos because I am going to talk about the show Bewitched. Here we go. All right, so here are my thoughts before I get into the heart of the matter about the show Bewitched. All right, so it's one of those shows that I saw growing up. You know, it was either on Nick at Night or TV Land. And, it's just a cute little show, nostalgic show. And it was interesting because my mom said when she was growing up, that was a tradition for her as a kid to watch, specifically for Halloween, which is really cute, seeing a little kid in the 60s sitting in front of the TV set, eating candy and then watching Bewitched. How sweet. And so when you see the show and then you see the remake with the Bewitched movie, it really is something to be said about the aspects of pain, homage, where that lies within the creation of doing that well. Because, a show like Bewitched was a long-running series, and it was really well-renowned and respected. And there was a lot of prominent stars that were showcased on that show, specifically with the aspects of comedy and humor, and then merging that line, which a lot of shows did that quite nicely at the time. But, that's a testament, respect to the aspects of the times where let's up the ante with taste. And, that's what it was all about. And then that's why, a lot of people have coined this era and time the golden age of television, because, so many well-withstanding shows came out at this time. You got, on top of Bewitched, you have Leave It to Beavers. You have Harry and Ozzy at the Dick Van Dyke Show. And then, a little bit later on, you have, The Odd Couple. And, the list goes on, and then the Lucille Ball Show, and then, all that stuff. So, when a movie is trying to, tip its hat at taking the storyline of Bewitched to the next level, it's kind of a slap in the face, from my point of view, when you have it was just really present that everywhere from the production line to the actors were just phoning it in. And so it's just funny when you get into the aspects of the main characters, with Darren and then with Samantha, Nicole Kidman playing the role, so to speak, as Samantha, but it was, this whole different storyline with her, and then all of this with the aspects of Will Ferrell playing Darren. I would second guess those picks because it's quite funny. Nicole Kidman with her aspects of what's going on with her, she's just not in the realm, from my point of view, of getting that kind of humor right, or getting humor in general right, because she's more serious, and then she's just really, I think, because of, what's coming out about her and who knows and other stuff, that she's just kind of too kooky to get that right, which is unfortunate. Most of Hollywood, or the mystique, which is, is give credit where credit is due. There are predominant people in Hollywood who have a lot of common sense, who are well grounded, but it's just unfortunate the ones that are not are really overshadowing the aspects of the industry. And Will Ferrell, so it's which people don't really want to point that out. He's only as good as the selected cast, because if the selected cast is phenomenal, then he's going to feed off of that and then just run with it. And I think a really good example of that is that movie that came out, Land of the Lost. So those characters, specifically with I think his name is Danny Bride, or some that guy, because he was, he's in other comedic shows, and he got his notoriety through HBO, and so his humor is very specific to what he knows how to do, and those two didn't mesh well, and that's why that movie didn't do well, because the cast wasn't on par with him, with making him look good, really. And I think that's along the lines of what was going on in the aspects of this film. So getting back to the main sentence. Now, the show Bewitched, it really held into a lot of aspects about making commentary on, the society at large at that time. Specifically, talking about the aspects of motherhood, the aspects of being a wife, the aspects of modernity, and how does that all fit in the cusp of someone who has the ability to live her life as she chooses, to do whatever the heck she wants, pretty much at the flick of her wrist, or, the twitch of her nose in this case. And she doesn't have to be, preoccupied with anything if she wants to, but she chooses. That's the element of whimsy with this show. She chooses to have this life because she knows that it's much better than just, twitching your nose and giving it whatever you want. And there's a lot of elements to the moral compass of shows like that try to evoke these messages here. And so on top of my facts about, the show, I'm also going to dig into some fan theories about the show, because I think fan theories twist it up a little bit and give that really nice touch of a bow and to other perspectives to think about shows, and then, make it more interesting here. So with all this said, I'm going to start out with the facts about the show Bewitched. Here we go. And of course, sources will be provided for you in this episode. Okay. So it says, Bewitched is an American fantasy sitcom that originally aired on ABC from September 17th, 1964 until March 25th of 72. It spanned 8 seasons and 254 episodes. The series was created by Soul Sachs under executive producer Harry Ackerman and starred Elizabeth Montgomery as Samantha Stevens, a witch who married a mortal man, Darren Stevens, portrayed initially by Dick York and then later by Dick Sargent. And it's quite interesting. That was like how prolific this show was to pop culture. You even have sitcoms going on to the 90s, onto the 2000s, and so pointing out the aspects of the two Darrens, and then, making jokes about that, how people were gullible they thought people were gullible enough at that time to not see that there's completely two different men playing the same role, two different actors, and it's really funny. All right, so the show's premise centers on Samantha's efforts to live a normal suburban life while concealing her magic abilities from her husband in the outside world. So the series was a major rating success, finishing the second highest rating show in America during its debut and remaining in the top 10 for the first 3 seasons. It often competed head-to-head with other popular shows as All in the Family, and was known for its blend of romantic comedy and supernatural farce. The show's ironic visual effect with the witch twitch involved Samantha twitching her nose and mouth to cast spells was a signature element that became widely recognized. Samantha's magical family frequently interferes in her life, and particularly her mother, Andorra, played by Agnes Moorehead, who disapproves of her daughter's marriage to a mortal and often casts spells to sabotage the relationship. Other recurring characters included Gladys Kravis, the nosy neighbor played by Alice Pierce, and later Sandra Gould, and Darren's boss, Larry Tate, portrayed by David White. The show also featured a number of semi-regular characters, including Samantha's father, Maurice Evans, her aunt Clara, Maureen Lorne, and her uncle Arthur Paulin, which in right respect, he was a heavy hitter in the aspects in the respect of comedy. So the show's production began just hours before the assassination of President John F. Kennedy on November 22nd of 1963, a tragic event that deeply affected the cast and the crew, particularly Elizabeth Montgomery and her husband. Producer William Asher, who had produced Kennedy's birthday celebration. Wow. Despite this, the series went on to become one of the most enduring sitcoms of its era, continuing to air on syndication, and DVDs aren't really a thing now, but in the aspects of American culture, DVDs, when that transcends out, we are more in the aspects of streaming and everything. So, you can stream it on popular streaming devices here. So, Bewitched, that's a bit out of date, but there you go. Bewitched has had a long-lasting cultural impact, inspiring the 1977 spinoff Tabitha, starring Lisa Hartman as Samantha and Darren's daughter. And in 2005, as I mentioned, directed by Nora Ephron, in which Nicole Kidman played a witch hired to star in the remake of the original series. So the show was ranked number 50 on the TV Guide's list of the 50 greatest TV shows of all time in 2002, and received critical acclaim for its progressive themes, including a 1970 episode that addressed racism, subtly reflecting societal change during the civil rights era. All right, so I'm going to get into my thoughts, and then I'll be right back. All right, so it's quite interesting. I can't remember the name of this documentary. And so they were talking about the aspects of television characters, specifically female roles in the 60s and so forth. And the show Bewitched was in this, I think it was on PBS or something like that. I saw this. They went on and on saying that Samantha's role in respect from their point of view was, if you take a second look at it, it was really talking about the aspects of female liberation and the aspects of touching on the subject matter of feminism. And the cases that they presented were this. It said that the way in which Samantha's role was depicted, they were trying to, say it as if she was, in her respect, downplayed or forced, or you would think she was a hostage. She was forced to do something that she didn't want her to do, and to the fact that she couldn't really live up to her full potential because her husband wouldn't allow her to. When that is really the problem with projecting what you want to see onto something that I don't know if it's there. I don't think it's there. So here's my discourse about this here. So the word of choice is choice. Samantha wanted to be a wife and a mother. She could have easily outcast her husband and say, the heck with this, when she realized she didn't want to do it, and just be with it and just be rid of him and then move on. But no, she wanted to be, because she understood the fulfillment of it. Now, I would argue and say that her mother was the one that was really the feminist, because her mom was always agonizing and was always the protagonist between them, and always the strain in their relationship, so to speak. Even though they did their best to make their marriage work and make their marriage strong, despite her, they would just, outwit her or just ignore her. And then, over the years, Darren had developed a callous against her and used different tactics to not let her get the best of him. And so, because she kept trying to whisper into her ear, hey, your life would be much better if you would just come back to not the other realm, but just come back to your home. Just be a witch again. Just use your full power. And Samantha just revoked whatever she said and said, no, I'm content with where I am. See, that balance of the ever line of the jargon, or if you want to see it as a metaphor, putting that line in the sand there. All right, so with all this said, I'm going to get into the aspects of fan theories about this show. Here we go. Excuse me. All right, these fan theories here. All right, so mental itch. What was the craziest fan theories about Bewitched? Mental itch. And then I'm going to go to TV tropes. All right, so it says Samantha as a time traveler alien. So what is this about? It says, imagine if Samantha's witchcraft and Bewitched was actually advanced technology from a time traveling alien species. This fan theory suggests her magical abilities weren't magic but sophisticated alien tech. Her power to manipulate the time and space could be an advanced gadget from her home planet. So fans point to her mysterious origin and ease with which she performs these magical feats to clues of her extraterrestrial nature. So according to the theory, Samantha's decision to marry mortal Darren wasn't just a choice but a part of a larger mission to observe human society by integrating into suburban life. She could study human behavior and customs up close. Her marriage to a mortal provided the perfect cover for her true identity as a time-traveling alien. Although the show never confirmed this theory, it adds an intricate layer to Samantha's character. Instead of just being a witch, she becomes a complex figure on a covert mission, blended in while the truth about her alien origins lies. And then to add on to this, when this show came out, it was during the era of the space age. So, maybe these theories come from that too. So, Darren as a Time Lord. Some fans believe that Darren from Bewitched could be a Time Lord like the Doctor from Doctor Who. This theory suggests that Darren's ability to handle magical situations can stay calm and aligns with being a Time Lord. So fans notice that the encounters with the witch's spells and time travel like events hint to a hidden identity. Darren often stays calm, though sometimes frustrated when dealing with Samantha's magic and her quirkiness. So supernatural relatives, his quick thinking and ability could be traits of a seasoned Time Lord. So his return to normal life after these strange experiences might show a deep understanding of time and space. The Spellman connection. So it says, imagine if Samantha and Serena were switched at birth. Aunt Clara was Samantha's real mother, and the witches going on with the aspects of today's worldview of polyamorous, which is ludicrous. These fan theories could change how you see Bewitched. Alright, so Aunt Clara's secret. According to another theory, Aunt Clara is Samantha's real mom, not Endora. This would mean Samantha was switched at birth and again with Serena. So, non-traditional relationship and dynamics. So Endora and Maurice challenging typical marriage norms. Unlike traditional sitcom marriages, the relationship is ambiguous and open to interpretation. They don't act like a typical married couple, but respect each other's individuality with magic talents. And again, I think this is in respect of trying to do something with the aspects of them being abnormal with the aspects that they're witches. So independently The personality of Maurice's flamboyant and often absent presence suggests a partnership based on mutual understanding rather than societal norms. Impact on Samantha's choices. A popular fan theory suggests that Samantha's decision to marry Darren, immortal, was strategic, influenced by her magical family's unconventional dynamics and her parents, Endora and Maurice, and had a non-traditional relationship impacting Samantha's decision. Goes on to say Samantha may have sought stability and normalcy by marrying Darren, which she lacked in her magical upbringing. Magic often caused chaos in her life, clashing with mortal norms. So marrying Darren could have been her way to find balance amid the magical mayhem. This theory suggests that Samantha's marriage to Darren was a deliberate move to counterbalance the unpredictable nature of her parents' union, bringing order to her life. So there's doppelganger theories. It says that Samantha's strategic marriage adds depth to her character, but the doppelganger theory suggests that Uncle Arthur and Harold introduced a fascinating twist to the magical family dynamics of Bewitched. Uncle Arthur, played by Paul Lynde, created a doppelganger named Harold, whose contrasting personality adds layers to the storyline. So unlike the mischievous and playful Arthur, Harold was timid and flighty, yet both characters shared a sense of fun that kept viewers engaged. The doppelganger dynamic between Arthur and Harold wasn't just for comedy, it often led to serious consequences. Harold's flightiness caused trouble, adding tension and drama to the episodes. Fans speculate that Harold might have represented Arthur's suppressed insecurities or hidden desires. Fans still discuss how Uncle Arthur and Harold enriched the show. Says that the portrayal of Darren by both Dick York and Dick Sargent also added different vibes, making the interplay with Arthur and Harold's antics memorable. These elements solidified Bewitched as a classic that continues to intrigue audiences. Alright, so crossover with the Potterverse. So imagine the excitement of Bewitched fans when they theorized a crossover with the Potterverse, where they're in Harry Potter. So linking Samantha's witchcraft to the wizardry world of Harry Potter. Fans speculate that Samantha might have attended Hogwarts or interacted with characters like Harry Potter or Hermione Granger. This theory sparks lively discussions about how Samantha's magical abilities could fit into the J.K. Rowling magical universe. Here are some possible explanations. Hogwarts students. Samantha could have been friends with Hermione, sharing advanced magical knowledge. Hogwarts teacher. She might have been a mentor to Harry, guiding him to complex spellwork. Magic Alley. Samantha could have partnered with Dumbledore to strategize against dark wizards, or magical consultant. She might have advised the Ministry of Magic introducing new enhancement and charms. So again, I think this is like a theory. Hey, they're both using, low base common denominator. They're both in the witch world, so why not, kind of thing. But this theory is quite interesting enough in itself. All right, so let me go on to the final one before I wrap up with TV tropes. It says Bewitched and mental illnesses. So another integrated theory suggests that Bewitched is actually a tragic narrative about mental illness, with Samantha's magical abilities representing her psychological struggles. Says this theory points that Samantha's witchcraft symbols the mental health issues where her powers serve as both a burden and a coping mechanism. So it says, imagine Darren as a weirdness magnet, so attracting supernatural occurrences due to Samantha's mental health challenges. This dynamic creates a complex interplay of magic therapy and coping mechanism where everyday life becomes a constant battle between reality and fantasy. Samantha's decision to marry a mortal like Darren can be seen as a strategic move to manage her psychological struggles. By choosing a partner who grounds her, she navigates her mental health more effectively. Though through this lens, each spell and enchantment isn't just witchcraft, but a representation of her internal conflict and attempts to cope. The theory also explores how Darren's ability to Samantha's magical world might signify an acceptance of her mental health state. This adaptation highlights the deep psychological implications of her relationship, where love and acceptance play a vital role in Samantha's experience. All right, so let's see what TV Trope says. It says, Samantha is actually a spellman. Her father, Maurice, is the brother of Aunt Irma and the brother of Sabrina's grandfather, who never met. So making him actually Maurice Spellman, which in turn makes Samantha the first cousin of Hilda, Zelda, Edward, Vesta, and Sophia. The reason that there's no mention of Queen of the Witches and Sabrina, like there is in Bewitched. So Sabrina, the comic book, right? The Archie comic book, and then it became a television series in the 90s with Melissa Joe Hart as the main actress. So again, I think these things are, they're all witch themed shows. So let's blend them all in. So it says, Sabrina, like there is in Bewitched, is because the monarchy was overthrown sometimes in the gap between the end of Bewitched and the beginning of Sabrina, making the witch council, they had, bosses in charge there. I'm going to clean that up because what they say is more graphic. If you can get the other derogatory term that starts with the B, you know what I'm talking about. So the reason that Tabitha can do magic at her age, despite being half mortal, is because her parents were still together. As we know, Sabrina's parents divorced, and she did not discover her magic until she was 16. So their separation could have something to do with it. It could also be that Tabitha was just really powerful, as she started numerous times in Bewitched, or half witches could do magic when their babies, toddlers, could lose control over sometime when they become 16. So Samantha uses her magic to change Darren's appearance. Samantha has shown herself to be very protective of her husband, and many have changed the way that he looks to prevent other witches who have antagonized him over the years from realizing who he was, so that they could leave him alone. Of course, her relatives would be none the wiser, but this was unavoidable. So another possibility, apparently, that Dick York was replaced because his back was so bad that he couldn't act on the show anymore, and spent many episodes soon before the departure just laying down. Maybe Darren's body was failing him and making it hard for him to move around, so Samantha used her magic to give him a new and healthy body. Let me go on to see other stuff. Says Darren and then this is alluding to Mad Men. So it says Darren and Ad Man in the 1960s. So at some point he'll be hired by Sterling Cooper Drake Price, just because he's also an Ad Man in the 60s. But it would be fun to think they were somehow connected. All right, so hold on just a minute. All right, so I'm going to end on this, and I'm going to say this here. So the show Mad Men here, again, that show was giving respect to the aspects, to the influence that particularly with the 50s and going on to the 60s, and it didn't get into the 70s so much, the era in which the show Bewitched was prevalent and in which Darren was a part of, being in an ad agency was very pivotal and a very sought after role at that time, because when you think about it, they were in the age of the economy booming, and then the buying power was really with women, but the men behind that face of that knew how to market that well. And it was all about sophistication and know-how. And so it's quite, common sense for them to want to have a show that centers around that focal point. Because, again, it's Bewitched was predominantly a show that focused towards women, but also a show where the whole family could sit down and watch it too. And so to add on top of that, to have a character like Darren to be in the landscape of the advertising business, it just all suits. And so, when you cross over and you think about the aspects of them tying that into the Bewitched era show, but then, going back to the show like Mad Men was in it itself, I think, just really paying homage to these shows and the imagery of what you think about when you move to encapsulate the aspects of the 60s and the 50s and so forth. All right, so this reaches the end of the Harbor Light, and of course I would like to know what you all think. Feel free to reach out, and the best way to do so is through email. And I do greatly appreciate those who have made comments, who reach out to me, who talk to me. It means a lot, and I really appreciate all of you. All right, so tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now.